The iPhone Pocket came out a couple months ago, but honestly, it's kind of impractical if you're like me and carry both a work phone and a personal phone. I decided to fix that. Today I'm showing you how I struggled through learning circular and U-style knitting to create a double phone version that actually makes sense. From my failed samples to the final technique, here's how I made it work. I've taken a look at a lot of pictures of the iPhone Pocket online, and admittedly, I haven't gotten my hands on one. To me, it kind of looks like a big tube, or some people have even called it a sock, with a hole in the middle for a handle or to wear it crossbody. I'm not going to be doing an exact replica. To me, that's kind of boring. It's been made, it's been done. I want to do something different that meets my needs. A large part of the reason that I'm restarting this channel and doing these videos is because I want to push myself out of my comfort zone. With each of these videos, I'm hoping to learn something new. So what am I going to be learning new? Well, when I looked at the Pocket, the first thought I had was, because it's a tube, to do circular knitting. Now, that's apparently not how it's actually made, but that's how I'm going to be making mine and getting the features that I want in mine. While I do know how to circular knit using regular knitting needles, I've never actually done it with a knitting machine. As you can see, I have a knitting machine. I've had it for about a year, and in that time, I have made exactly two things: a hat and a sleeve. Yes, just one sleeve. And a couple of swatches. This will definitely be pushing my skills with the knitting machine quite a bit. At any rate, the first thing I'm going to need to do is teach myself how to do circular knitting on my knitting machine. So let's go do that. Trying to find a good camera angle here, and I think this is the best I'm going to be able to do. So I know that I need to use my ribber, which is this piece down here, to do circular knitting. And fortunately, that's already set up because of doing the ribbing on that wayward sleeve that I mentioned earlier. I did have to teach myself how to use the ribber, and for that, so I am at least that far ahead. But let's look at the ribber manual and take a look at the section on circular knitting. So we have these two pages. Actually, just this page and this page for circular knitting. And then we also have U-style knitting, which is another page and a half. And I'm actually going to need the U-style as well. So we're going to try the circular knitting first. Now, the yarn I'm going to be using is this Micro Tam T5232 Dusty Pink yarn that I got from Knit Knack Shop, and I'll put the link below. I have white as well, as I'm planning on using this yarn as an accent color for a sweater. But that means that I should have plenty of leftover to do some trial phone pockets, and I like the color, so this is something I would actually carry. And it's really nice and soft, so looking forward to the sweater too. Testing out the circular knitting is going to also give me a swatch where I can get my gauge, and then I can do my calculations for the real thing. Let's go ahead and take a look at the instructions and see what we can do. All right, so tension 0, NL, N, N, no buttons. And there, side. That is in the right spot, that's in the right spot, and 0. And then I do need to switch this out for the ribber one. And let's pop this back into place. Okay, so this is all set up. All right, next up, I need to set the half pitch lever to H. Coming down here, get that over to H, and arrange the plain and purl needles in position B on each bed. So, 19 on each side. So they do note that the number of needles between plain and pearl needle must be the same, which this is the case because we start with the plain and then we end with the pearl. And we're going to move the carriage over a couple times, get everything in the right spot. Normally we would do a cast on thread, but I actually want to make a pocket, so I want it to be closed at the bottom. So we're just going to be using the same thread for our cast on thread. Just clipped off the end because it was kind of bent, so I was having a hard time getting it through. And let's go ahead and feed it in there. Move it from left to right. And there we go. So now I am going to hang the cast on comb and we put some weights.
Yep.
Now we change the settings to 6. And 6. And left. This guy goes in, up, down. All right. Ooh, that was tough. Okay. And it should do the pearl needles now, which did. Okay, we've done 60 now. So the next thing I want to do is try U-style knitting. And I'm only going to go to the 0 here because I only want to do half. Because basically my tube is going to have a cut in the middle and then 2 U-styles on either side. But the first thing we want to do is put these stitches on some waste yarn. So I just went to grab a chenille style needle that I can use. That's not quite what I want. I have totally screwed this up. Oops. Okay, how are we gonna fix this? All right, now time to do the other side, which I think we will decide to screw up the same way so that we are at least consistent. All right, and we're back. We have pulled down. They say you learn more from your mistakes than your successes, so this is the part where I really started to learn quite a bit. Oh no, that is not at all what we wanted. Oh, I was supposed to put this down. Oh, shoot. Oh no, I've done terrible things. Oh, I was supposed to flip this too. Oh my goodness, I just messed everything up. Oh dear, that's not good. That's not good at all. Lost a whole bunch of stitches. Uh-oh. Briefly there, it did seem like everything was going wrong. However, we did get it back on track. All right, I think that we have the basic idea, even though that was a total fail. Well, okay, not a total fail. We figured it out, but it didn't quite do it. This way did in fact work much better, and I have a close-up of how I put them back on the hooks later on in the video. Not surprisingly, screwing up a few times helped me figure out a better way of doing it. All right. Way smoother than last time, so hey, at least I'm getting better at something. This down this part is pretty tedious, so I'm going to speed it up for you because I'm basically hanging individual loops onto the hooks one at a time. Unfortunately, even after all that, I wasn't quite done with my educational mistakes. Nope, totally did that wrong. All right. Uh-oh, we've totally jammed, and I have no idea why. Oh yeah, oh dear. That, yeah, totally caught one of the things I was trying not to catch. Okay. All right, I think we have to just stop it here because it is totally jammed. All right, so here is what we ended up with. Really nice bottom. I'm really happy with that. So the circular knitting part went great. I love my little bottom there, and it makes a super nice little pocket. We are going to wash this to get the gauge here, but I am going to, the U-knitting did not go as well as I would have liked. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice some U-knitting, just U-knitting, and see what we can do. For the U-knitting practice, I didn't practice the hooking and unhooking. I just tried doing the U-knitting in the two different directions. So one where it's closed on the left and the other where it's closed on the right. My goal was to get comfortable with the rhythm of the U-knitting. There is definitely a pattern because you're constantly switching between two directions, and I wanted to be comfortable with the changes in the settings for the different carriages as you switched from left to right and then right to left. Overall, I was happy with the result, both the practice and how the swatch turned out. So after washing, the next step was to go ahead and actually calculate our gauge. First, I'm going to get the horizontal gauge. So I'm going to count the number of stitches in 2 inches going horizontally. I got 15, and divided by 2 inches, this is going to give me 7.5 stitches per inch. Next, I'm going to get the vertical gauge. And so again, I'm going to count the number of stitches in 2 inches. I did my initial counting on the circular knitting swatch, but I do double check it on the U-knitting swatch later. I got a value of 23 stitches in the 2 inches, giving me a vertical gauge of 11.5 stitches per inch. The last gauge I want to get is the stretched horizontal. Since the phone will be in the circular knitted part of the phone pocket, I stretched the circular swatch over the phone and again counted the number of stitches in 2 inches. This gave me a value of 14 stitches, which divided by 2 inches is a gauge of 7 stitches per inch. Next, I wanted to measure the phone. The phone width was 3.125 inches and the phone height was 6.375 inches. Now it's time to talk a little bit about the design of my phone pocket. I actually carry 2 phones on a regular basis, one personal and one work. So my phone pocket is going to have a pocket for each one at either end. We're going to go ahead and call those sections A, and that's the circular knitting section. The middle section, which is made up of 2 parts, a left and a right, done with U-knitting, we'll call B, and the width we'll call C. Now, using the measurements I took before and the gauges, we just need to calculate A, B, and C, and then we'll have our pattern. To calculate C, we take the width of the phone times the stretched horizontal gauge. This gives us approximately 22 stitches. Next, we'll want to calculate A and B. So to get A, we'll want to look at the phone height and then multiply that times the vertical gauge. So 6.375 times 11.5, this gives us approximately 74 rows. For B, I know that I'd like this opening to be approximately 10 inches because I'd like it to hang down from my wrist about 5 inches. 10 inches times the vertical gauge of 11.5 stitches per inch is going to be 115 rows. An important note is that when you're doing circular knitting or U-knitting, you actually have to count twice the number of rows. Each row actually takes 2 passes on the row counter, and that's the number we're ultimately looking for a knitting machine pattern. So A is going to be 74 rows times 2, giving us 148. And B is going to be the 115 rows I mentioned before, again times 2, giving us 230 rows. C is actually the number of stitches that we're going to be casting on, both to the plain and the purl needles. I calculated 22 stitches before, but I'm actually going to add an additional stitch on each side to account for the sides of the phone. Now that we have our final numbers, we can go ahead and get started. We'll cast on 24 stitches to both the plain and purl needles, then we'll do circular knitting for 148 rows, U-knitting for 230 rows on each side, and finish up with another 148 rows of circular knitting. I'm going to keep this part at 10x speed. At this point, you've seen basically what I'm doing in the parts where I was learning how to do circular knitting and U-knitting. And that practice really gave me the ability to just go for it at this point. One thing I will note is that you will see my outfit and the time of day change in just a moment. That's because I was a little overconfident and thought, oh yeah, I can get this done even though it's late at night. Apparently, it was a little later than I thought and I was a little more tired than I thought, so I ended up messing up the first run through on this. At that point, I decided, you know what, we're gonna go to sleep and we will tackle this in the morning with fresh eyes and a fresh cup of tea. This was definitely the right move because everything was pretty smooth after that. I didn't re-record the first half, which is basically doing the first set of circular knitting and then the first part of the U-knitting, because that was pretty much identical, so they look the same. I mentioned before that the methods I'm using aren't how the real iPhone Pocket is constructed. Carson over on her Knit Factory Impul channel did a full breakdown of the real thing, and I'll link that video below in the description in case you're interested in checking it out. I wanted to show you how I put the U sections back on the needles. First, I use a chenille needle in order to find the actual loop. Then I use a double-eyed transfer tool in order to put it back on the bed needle. And I just repeat this for each loop. Once in a while, the loop is loose enough that I can use the transfer tool directly, but usually I had to use the chenille needle in order to open it up enough in order to get the actual transfer tool in there. All right, so we have reattached this side over here, and I'm going to pop this up. And now we are going to do circular knitting along this whole area for, if I recall correctly, 148 rows. If you're enjoying this video and would like to continue learning, growing, and exploring with me, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And I'd love it if you could leave a comment below telling me what your favorite part of the video was or what you'd like to see more of. And now this should just pull everything off. Whoop! All right, so now we have what we've done here, and I'm going to pull it off comb. And this is what we've made. We've got some threads to bury, and I need to close this stitch up. I believe a Kitchener stitch is the way to do that. But we can see how our cell phone fits in it. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, we are going to go stitch this up and we'll be right back. it is done, my double phone pocket. I have steamed it a little bit, but these sides really do want to curl in quite a bit, but I think it just kind of adds to the charm. So let's test it with some cell phones. It turns out the double phone pocket isn't just more practical. It's also a great way to learn circular and U-style knitting. So if you'd like to practice these techniques, I'll put links to the yarn I used as well as my machine settings down in the description so you can try it yourself. I'm always looking for my next challenge, so hit the subscribe button to see what I try learning next. And in the meantime, let me know in the comments below. Do you think the iPhone Pocket is useful as is? Or would you be more likely to use a double phone pocket like this version? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next experiment.